What's up, y'all? Miss Mac here, bringing you a WDC Season 4 team report. I did not actually get a chance to make a team report before the season started, so I decided to just make a postseason recap, talk about my team and the run in general. For the most part, it was a wild ride. I gotta say that. I really enjoyed the team. First, I do have to give a few shout-outs. First shout-out is to Noya. Noya helped me draft this team. They gave me a lot of good insight in terms of draft priority, strategy, and just overall helping me conceptualize like the vision for this team. Starting with getting Sneasler and kind of going from there. So big shout out to them. Met them in the SBF community. They've been great. They're a cracked out team builder, so I appreciate that so much. Next up, I want to shout out the WDC homies. Despite the fact that we are competing against each other, we are still homies. So Matrix, Brave, Pat Mac, all y'all done. All y'all, love y'all. It's always fun playing with you guys. It's the main reason I actually do this league is because I enjoy playing and chatting and vibing with you guys. So thank y'all for making that a great experience. And last but not least, I want to also shout out Bihani. He is the CPDL Champions Path Draft League commissioner, one of two. He helped me with some preps on certain weeks where I had to play many of you guys, and I could obviously rely on you guys for prep. So I appreciate him for giving a really unbiased opinion on a lot of my drafts and just taking the time to mock with me. Love you, bro. Appreciate you. Alright, let's get started. So my theme for this season, nickname-wise, was Scooby-Doo, and my Three Stooges was just an idea I had in my mind when this draft started. I was like, this is a cool nickname theme. So every single team member of this squad is named after a Scooby-Doo villain across the franchise, except for the affectionately known as Three Stooges of Psyspam. We'll get into that right about now. So, my first round pick was Sneasler, aka Curly Joe. So, Sneasler is great. Sneasler is very fast. Sneasler is very offensive. Sneasler also comes with really good support moves like coaching, comes with feints, all those kinds of things. Even has fling. Yes, I consider fling a support move for like fling King's Rock sets. That's great. And of course, it has the infamous move Dire Claw, which has a 50% chance to either sleep, paralyze, or poison you. Obviously, that is probably one of the main reasons that people hate prepping against Sneasler, in addition to the fact that it gets Unburdened to make it even faster. But it's not without its drawbacks. Sneasler is 4 times weak to Psychic, being a poison and fighting type, and it is also somewhat frail, even with the seed boosts that it might get from being on a terrain team. For this team, you'll see based on my next pick, it was on a Psychic terrain team, so that already amplifies its 4 times weakness, and then like the Psy-Seed just did not help out too well, because pretty much every single opponent I faced this season brought Psyshock somewhere in their team, because Psyshock one-shot Sneasler almost every time, in and out of terrain. So, yes, Sneasler did not really get too much of a time to shine until playoffs, despite being one of my 2 S tiers and being my first round pick. Like, it came to pretty much every week, but there were just times where, honestly, I either benched it or I brought it to, like, 1 game out of, like, maybe a 2 or 3 game set. So, it was definitely not the star of the regular season, but Sneasler stepped it up real hard in playoffs. It was an instrumental part in at least 2 of my 3 playoff matches for sure, so shout out Sneasler. Next up is Indeedee Mail, also known as Mo, the leader of or self-proclaimed leader of the Three Stooges. Indeedee was pretty much the glue that held this team together. It let me have Psychic terrain, which is great for stopping priority, so I don't have to worry about anything really outpacing Sneasler unless it is also fast. It brought the Psyspam mode with Expanding Force. Even on just its own, it can click Expanding Force, which is great. Definitely had a high damage output, like Expanding Force, Psyshocks, that stuff in terrain. Yeah, that's not really a joke. Also has some great support moves. Gets Trick Room, gets Imprison, gets Encore, although I don't think I actually used Encore too often on it this season. And it has actually pretty good typing. Normal Psychic only has 2 weaknesses in Dark and Bug. and because the normal type functions as ghost resist, so that actually was very helpful. Indeedee is just defensively very frail. Like, its base defense stat is 65, so physical hits, not its friend. And there were times where I often had 4 move slot syndrome, which means that I struggled to find exactly which 4 moves I wanted. Most weeks I at least wanted Expanding Force for sure, and Protect, and usually a coverage move so I don't get walled out by Terra Dark. But sometimes it was really hard to decide like which 4 moves I want. There were times where I really wanted to run Trick Room or Encore, or even consider like After You for a few weeks in prep. So those were the tough parts about using Indeedee, but overall, Indeedee delivered. Indeedee delivered consistently throughout the entire season. I think there is literally 1 week I did not bring Indeedee all season. Next up, my round 3 pick ended up being Corviknight, also known as Old Iron Face. I chose Corviknight because Steel Flying typing is fantastic. Corviknight's bulk is fantastic. And due to the fact that it has Mirror Armor, which means any stat debuffs get reflected back to the opponent, it's pretty difficult to stop it from, getting set up, and especially when it is already set up, like, you have a hard time, getting rid of those stat boosts. You pretty much have to use Haze on it, because as Steel type, it's immune to Clear Smog, and if you want to burn it, I can just run Terrifier on it so that I can not be burned. So those are all pluses for Corviknight. It does usually require setup to get going, which I will say is one of its slow points. Like, most of its sets involve either bulk up or higher defense body press, so like you need to invest a turn or 2 to get that going. And those things are vulnerable to being taunted or encored, so that I have to either can't set up with taunt affecting me, or I have to repeat my setup move for 3 turns being locked into encore. To that end, I ended up running Choice Band Corviknight my very first week, and in my semifinal match. Actually, I ran Choice Band Corviknight a lot of times this season. I don't think there were too many Corviknight sets that I did not run that were not Choice Band. I think maybe just 1 week I ran a standard setup set. I think it was versus Dunn, where he had Sandstorm, and Steel Flying is really good into like T-Tar X control, especially with like body press pressure. But yeah, I just enjoyed actually slapping Choice Band on this spawn because it's already so naturally bulky and has high base damage stab moves and like Brave Bird. You could just kind of go crazy. Defensive Terra, it can live a few hits, get off some good ship. Corviknight was great, and it ended up being, I believe, it was my kill leader for like the entire season. I think it got like 12 kills by the time the 6-week regular season was up. Did not really do that much in playoffs, admittingly. Most people were relatively prepared for it, and I would say there were other Mons on my team that ended up being more valuable. But shout out to Corviknight for being the regular season kill leader. Like, Mon was great. I would definitely draft it again and abuse Choice Band. Just catches so many people off guard. Next up is the 3rd member of the 3 Stooges of Psyspam. I drafted it round 4. It is Delphox, also known as Larry, mostly because of the red hair. So Delphox completes the Psyspam trio by also offering Expanding Force, high special offensive threat, had really good coverage, having fairy coverage, some ground coverage, ghost, grass. Delphox was really good on the coverage end, where I did not have to like rely on running Terra Blast on it to get coverage, which is very nice. It also had some pretty good support moves. It was a fast encore user. It even got Howl. I never used it, but it even got like Howl if I was like trying to run a more supportive set. And it does have a unique ability in Magician, where if it uses an item, it steals the item of the next Pokemon it hits with an attack. So I did run Magician, Psychic Seed, Delphox, and I think like my week 3 against a really bulky team to just kind of rob them of their items. And I think it was 1 week that I actually did not want Unburdened for Sneasler, so that was kind of cool. Delphox is another frail Mon. Defensively, it can't, physically on the defensive side, it can't really take hits very well. And I would say it is kind of a Terra Hog. Its typing does afford it a lot of offensive pressure, but at the same time, like, because it's defensively frail and its typing is like Fire Psychic offers a fair bit of weaknesses. I believe it offers about 5 of them. Yeah, Delphox often demanded Terra when I did bring it, so that was one of the struggles. But when it came, Delphox did fantastic. I will say that much. Next up is an old favorite of mine, Crocodile, also known as Gator Ghoul. Crocodile was great. I loved Dark and Ground Stab on this spawn. Those are two, I would say, important stab types that make sure you have somewhere on your draft in terms of being able to hit like Fire, Steel, Psychic, Ghost Mons, and also just being immune to Prankster, which was nice. I didn't really have to worry too much about Prankster because I was toting a Psychic Terrain team, but it still was just nice that in the event that I did not have Terrain up, I was still unaffected by Prankster due to my natural Dark typing. This mod hits like a truck. This mod also has 3 really good abilities. Intimidate for a stat debuff on the opponent. Moxie for a stat boost every time you get a kill. And I didn't use Anger Point because I didn't have a way to actually proc it reliably, but Anger Point would max out my attack if I got hit with a critical hit, so usually you proc that with like Frost Breath. I tried to justify actually trying to add Frost Blast or Glalie to this team, but I really couldn't see a way just to add another mode that I probably wasn't going to be using all that often. A couple of the drawbacks about Crook is it's another Terra Hog just because dual timing is great, but again, offers a lot of weaknesses, about 5 or 6 of them, and those were kind of the drawbacks. So like if I brought Crook, it was another one that I almost always kind of had to Terra, or at least had to weigh its Terra options versus other Pokemon on my team, such as like Delphox, that may need it more. I would say the best week Crook probably had was also in the Sand matchup. Like T-Tar Excadrill did not really have too much to deal with it, especially when you factor in like Intimidate and the natural Ground Stab, which is good into both of them before either of them can Terra, because they're both weak to ground. But that was probably one of the better weeks for it. Also, week 1 I would say was really good for it against Matrix. The Scarf Crocodile in the back that I ended up bluffing with my Corviknight set. Based on his interpretation of how the match went, I also thought that Scarf Crook was really good for like outpacing Jolteon and Gengar in that endgame. So yeah, I was very happy with Crook. I've used Crook quite a few times this gen. I'd say it's in my top 3 of like favorite ground types. I would love to draft this spawn pretty much anywhere I go. So yeah, go Crook. Alright. Next up is Brains. No, I'm kidding. It's but shout out Dave. It's Milotic, also known as the Loch Ness, referring to the Loch Ness Monster. It was the second pairing in my difficult to debuff next to Corviknight because Milotic gets competitive, which if you lower its stats, it will gain a +2 special attack boost, effectively doubling its damage output. And that plus Corviknight made it very difficult for opponents to bring like Snarl into me, which is usually good into a Psychic Terrain team. In general, because you can Snarl to debuff Expanding Force, Spam. It also made it difficult to bring Intimidate if you wanted to debuff Sneasler. So I love just having it for people that have to prep against. It had Marvelous Bulk because one of its other abilities, I should say, is Marvel Scale. So if it's affected by a status like Burn, it will double its defense stat. I used that a few times across the season where competitive was not something I thought was likely to be triggered by my opponents at all, I did bring it to the finals, even though it never ended up hitting the field, but I did have Flame Orb, Marvel Scale to deal with Annihilate, because I could survive like super boosted Rage Fists, at least 1 or 2 of them. I would say the best thing about Milotic is his team player, like either by getting chipped to put things in range for other members of the team to KO, or by supporting them with like Life Dew and like Icy Winds, slowing down the opponent. Like Milotic never really like swept any games on its own except for one. It went really crazy in the Sand matchup because it kept getting competitive boosts. But other than that, like Milotic was just like sort of like the mother hen of this team, like making sure everybody was good during the weeks that it came. I would say 2 of the weak points are it does require setup, whether it be offensively through like Throat Spray, Alluring Voice, or like the Coil stuff. And it can kind of get out muscled easily for as bulky as it is. I learned in the 6th week of the regular season when I faced Burt that, yeah, +2 from Nasty Plot on GZ, yeah, that hurts, man. Yeah, that hurts. And I was like Assault Vest that week, and I still got my shit rocked. So yeah, Milo Dick for as bulky as it is, if the opponents get set up more offensive pressure, like, yeah, Milo's gonna have a tough time keeping up. But I really enjoyed actually using this mod. I think it's my first time I've drafted. No, it's my second time I've drafted it during this generation. It's a great water mod for your team if you just need a balanced water mod for your team and you can afford Milo, I would recommend Milo. It's great. All right, next up is Trevenant, also known as the Grim Creeper. So one of the things I really liked about Trevenant this season, and just kind of in general for this team, is I liked Frisk. Item information is really handy, just in the general sense. So I liked having access to Frisk. Its other ability is Harvest, which if sun is up and it uses a berry, it gets 100% recovery rate to recycle that berry. If there's no sun up, then it's only a 50% chance. But I never used Harvest during the regular season. Trevenant also has really high base power attacks, so it had some really strong stat moves. Poltergeist is base 110. Woodhammer's base 120, so like those attacks are hitting really hard, and has a respectable attack stat. I believe its base attack is like 112 or something like that. So even without investing, like I'm doing a lot of damage, which I really loved. Its move pool is also fairly diverse on both ends. It gets access to like Poison Jab, Sucker Punch, Drain Punch. Also on the supportive end, it gets like Haze, Will-O-Wisp, Ally Switch, all of those fun things. Yeah, and it was an offensive Trick Room setter. It was one of my 2 Trick Room setters that was not, or I guess 3 really, because Indeedee and Delphox can also set Trick Room. But this was more in line with if I really wanted to do Trick Room 1 week, I was bringing this mod. Its typing of Grass and Ghost does have some pros and cons. I would say it does need Terra sometimes. Grass and Ghost has a really nice defensive profile, just, resisting normal, or rather, being immune to normal and fighting is actually pretty good. And then, you have the Grass profile for, like, Rage Powder stuff and Spores and Fleet Powders and all that stuff. But, like, it still has a fair amount of weaknesses. I would just say most of the time in the season, Trevenant was just outshined. Like, I just never really saw matchups where, like, it was really beating out some of the better members of my team. In fact, I think I only brought it twice. I know I brought it to my Week 6 game versus Gurt, where it did probably the best work it's done all season. And then I brought it versus the Sand team, but I don't think I ever ended up using it. Like, it was just on the bench. I think actually that week might have been a Harvest week, but I just never actually brought it. So yeah, it just was outshined. Not a bad mod by any real stretch of the imagination, but I just had so many other mods that usually got ahead of it in line, so to say. Alright, next up is Alcremie, also known as the Strawberry Phantom. So the big thing about Alcremie was I needed a fairy type, and late in the draft, a lot of the fairies were either really expensive or they were gone, so I needed a fairy type, so I just grabbed it. It was in like the second to last tier, so budget fairy type. It has 2 really good abilities. One of them is Sweet Veil, which protects it and allies from going to sleep, which is helpful against, like Sleep Powder, Spore, all that kind of stuff. And the other ability, which I've used pretty much every week, was Aroma Veil, which stops Taunt, Encore, Disable into your teammates and itself. Given that I have mods like Corbinite and Milotic that love to set up, this is perfect glue to make sure that I discourage people from bringing those kind of moves. It has a really great, especially offensive and defensive profile, boasting very high stats in both of those areas. And its move pool is decently overall. Like, I think the one thing about its move pool that I wish it had was Moonblast, but it gets Alluring Voice, and that's fine. Its drawbacks are that it is another one of the mods on my team that is weak on the physically defensive side. And it is also quite slow. Like, I think it's like base 68 speed or something like that. Like, I could Garf it and, like, use Decorate, but yeah, nah, most times it was just too slow to really do much of anything. It does struggle to also hit certain types, like steel types in particular, without Terra, so I had to be mindful of that. But it definitely had its big moment in the it had its big moment in the quarterfinal rematch, I would say, versus Gert, where the choice specs on Freebie just with Terra Ground just did a lot of good work into that team in terms of being able to threaten Napoleon and Rhydon and all of the things that Gert brought the second time around. So it definitely had its place. I was so close to trading this Vaughn, like seriously, because I was just like, I've not even thought about bringing it, but I'm glad I decided to keep it. It turned out to have its place later on in the season, so go out, Creamy. Alright, round 9 pick was Salamence. At this point in the draft, pretty much everybody had gotten their 2 S tiers, so I felt comfortable getting mine at this point. Nicknamed the Vulture. The one thing about Salamence that I really loved is how flexible its offenses are. I could run it physically, I could run it specially. It has moves to support itself for both. It has pretty good bulk, also gets Intimidate, so with Crocodile it was a double Intimidate core. Also gets Moxie, so with Crocodile it was a double Moxie core. So great abilities, pretty good bulk, and I liked having access to Focus Energy sets. So Focus Energy, Scope Lens, Draco Meteor, that's 100% crit rate on, well, 100% crit rate on any moves that you have with Focus Energy and Scope Lens together. So I liked having that option to break through really bulky stuff. I believe I brought that set versus Brian because he had a lot of like bulky screens and snow type stuff, so I wanted to make sure I had a way to kind of crit through all of that nonsense. It is indeed a Terrahawk due to the fact that it is 4 times weak to ice. And the worst thing about Salamence, God, it has such inaccurate flying stab. Like, no Brave Bird, nothing. Yeah, no Brave Bird, but like you have to rely on like dual Wing Beat, Hurricane. That was the worst. Like it just has such inaccurate flying stab. But overall, I'd say Salamence was really good. I enjoyed using it, and I think the weeks that it came, it was fairly impactful. I'd say the one week in particular that it wasn't was during the semifinal. I brought it versus Matrix with a bulky like Mirror Herb type of set because Matrix's team was very bulky and position oriented, and boy did he outmaneuver that Salamence but good. As soon as I saw how well he cooked me in that second and game 2 of that semifinal, I was like, nah, this one's staying on the bench. Yeah, he did really well during that match to position around Salamence, but it just kind of also goes to show you how like flexible Mence can really be. I often ran Terra Fire on it because I think it's just the best Terra for it. Resists Ice and Fairy, which are 2 of its bigger weaknesses. Yeah, it still remains weak to Rock, but yeah, that's just kind of is what it is, honestly. But yeah, great S tier for sure. Next up is my round 10 pick. I picked Pachirisu because I wanted an electric type, and I also thought Redirection was a nice element to add to this team for sure. Like just adding a Follow Me mon just already impedes a lot of different like flowcharts in terms of what needs to be done by the opponent in terms of their prep. I also liked it because it was Volt Absorb. Volt Absorb Follow Me is great for keeping the attacks, the electric attacks, away from Forv and Milo, so that was great. Nuzzle is also God tier level support move. 20 base power, can't miss, just paralyzes you. Done. Yeah, but it also had other good utility moves. Baby Doll Eyes, Eerie Impulse, Alluring Voice, that was nice. The worst things about Pachi was I found it to be a little frail for a support piece, even like it's not the bulkiest mon. It doesn't benefit from like Eviolite or any of that stuff. And of course, the mon does not really have any offensive pressure of its own, so a lot of times it's just going to paralyze stuff and click Follow Me. I just there just really weren't too many weeks where, again, it was like Trevenant. Like, I felt like it was kind of outshined based on how I was playing the team. Like, there was literally 1 week where I brought it on preview and I still never used it because I brought it, I believe, like week 3 to counter the like Oricorio, Pom Pom, and Volcarona Dancer combo. Because, Volt Absorb, I can just redirect Revelation Dance unless you Terra, and Pachirisu being electric type resist flying, so it doesn't care about that. It's bulky enough to live hits from Volcarona, and then Alluring Voice confuses them every single time they go for stat boost. But they didn't bring Oricorio, so it was like, yeah, no, it just stayed on the bench. So, sorry, Pachi. Alright, my last pick of the regular draft was Marshtomp. I just needed an E tier mon, so in the lowest tier. It was budget wide guard. It's actually really bulky with Eviolite. Gets Yawn. It's nice, and it has good base typing. Those are the plus sides of drafting Marshtomp. Obviously the downside is because it is a not fully evolved Pokemon, or NFE. It has a low base stat total, and one thing I learned about it is it does not get a single target physical ground move. So like no stomping, no high horsepower, and the attack stat at this stage is actually higher than the special attack stat, probably by about, I think, like 25. I think it's base 85 attack versus base 60 special attack. So not having like Stomping Tantrum at the very least was kind of annoying. Like the 1 week that I did run it, I had to rely on Earth Power, but I was also facing Torkoal that week, so I guess Earth Power just ended up being better. There's not really much else to say about this mon. Like, for its tier and value, it did actually get 2 kills the 1 week I did bring it. So good job, Marshtomp. Let's go. Alright. Next up is Zebstrika. So about halfway through the season, I tend to assess my team and see, what's working, what's not working, what I'm not using. And I realized that Pachirisu and Marshtomp were a little bit on the I'm not really using them, kind of holding me back kind of side. So I adjusted. I made some trades. I traded Pachirisu for Zebstrika, which was 1 tier lower than it. I wanted the redirection for the electrical attack, so I still actually wanted to have like a way to protect my Corviknight and Milotic, and Zebstrika gets Lightning Rod for that. But I really just wanted a stronger speed tier. Like, so much of my fast mode literally hinged on Sizzler getting on Burden, and I was just like, it was a struggle because I feel like I couldn't play in a fast mode without specifically having that. So I decided to bring in Zebstrika. It also has some pretty good support moves, getting like Faint and Eerie Impulse, even just a little bit of stray fire coverage, which can help in certain matchups. I did appreciate that. But yeah, having the better speed tier of 116 versus Pachirisu's 95 was probably the big reason I made this trade. And I also traded out Marshtomp in the same week for Avalugg. I did want to keep Wide Guard on the team somewhere, and I wanted to keep good defensive profile. Avalugg's base defense is 184, so I was just like, yeah, no, we can use this. While also having a base 117 attack stat, it just was an easy swap for me. Also gets sturdy, so I'm guaranteed to live a hit. Own tempo can prevent it from being intimidated. Like, this mon was great. And I was getting ready to go into a snow team matchup. I was like, yeah, this is the perfect time to just grab Avalugg and kind of just go crazy. It did very well in the snow team matchup, actually, and I think that was also the only week it got brought. But sometimes that's just how these drafts go. Like, everybody has their time to shine, hopefully. So that's the end of the regular season. So after this point, those were my mons I used for the first 6 weeks of the regular season. After qualifying for playoffs, there is a time period called the inheritance trades round. So you get to, in seeding order, you get to take a Pokemon from a team that is already out of playoffs, and it has been eliminated. You get to swap a Pokemon on your team for one of theirs. So right before the quarterfinals started, I was the 3rd seed, so I got to pick 3rd. So I took Electabuzz. Zebstrika is better than Pachirisu for what I wanted it for, but it's still kind of not the greatest electric type, so I immediately knew that once I saw Electabuzz going in the inheritance trade pool when that coach did not make playoffs, I was like, yeah, I just gotta get this. I just gotta get this mon for sure. So yeah, I liked having the dynamic of redirection. I just did not like my redirector. And Electabuzz benefits from Eviolite. It also gets Faint, which is great utility for a mon that can also click Follow Me. One of the things that people love to do in the face of sometimes Follow Me mons is they sometimes will protect just to kind of, you know, almost like waste a turn in some ways. But just having that Faint pressure for my offensive partners was very nice. Also gets Static, so if you make contact with Electabuzz, you have a like 30% chance to get fully paralyzed, and I loved that aspect of things as well. Electivire was also open as a potential option should this mon have gotten taken from me in the inheritance trade, but I really just wanted Electabuzz for the added bulk. So, and boy, did this mon carry my entire playoff run. It was living hits left and right. It just Electabuzz was just very difficult to remove for all of my playoff opponents. So I would say it's probably the MVP of this season outside of like my offensive mons. It is the single best addition I had on my team for the playoff run. So shout out to Electabuzz. I will be looking to draft this mon a lot more often. Next up was round 2. So every time you beat an opponent in playoffs, you also get to do an inheritance trade with their team. So I faced Gert for the quarterfinal, and I managed to beat him 2-1. So I took his Armarouge. I just traded Delphox for it. It's literally just a straight upgrade. Same typing, same access to Expanding Force, same wide move pool. A bit better bulk. Armarouge has like base 100 defense stat. But of course, the trade-off is that Armarouge is a lot slower than Delphox, by about like 30 speed points or so. So I was willing to make that trade because I felt like the bulk was probably a little bit more helpful. Also, it gets weak armor, so if I wanted to do any like side procs with like priority move and get a weakness policy off, I thought that was going to be more valuable going into the semi-final match. Speaking of that semi-final, this was the last trade from winning that semifinal match versus Matrix. I took Tinkaton from him. I traded Avalok for it because the final was versus Tyler, and Tyler had a very scary team. He had Household Annihilate, which is already a whole combo on its own, plus a lot of other bulky and fast threats. To be honest, I didn't really see like any one particular Pokemon that was like, this is easily going to turn this matchup into like a super favorable one. So I took the Tinkaton because it's a comfort pick for me. I've used it a lot this generation. I've had a lot of success with using it this generation. And it's one of my favorite mons. So it's just like great typing, good utility, good damage. Like I can't really go wrong. It did very much end up proving me right. It was very good in that semifinal match, in that finals match, with an Assault Vest to tank a lot of those special hits. As soon as I got rid of the physical mons, Tinkaton did put in a good degree of work. And Gigaton Hammer is just a really broken move. Base 240 with stab, base 160 with stab, making it effectively a 240 base power move that can't miss. That's crazy. that's insane. Yeah, but I love this mon. It obviously only got to play one match because it was on the team for just the final, but it definitely pulled its weight in the final match. And yeah, that's the end of my my little team reports. I have not done one of these postseason before, but I really wanted to put these slides to use and just talk a little bit about how my team was and my run was. Yes, the three Stooges of Psyspam, they did their work. Could not have been happier with this team. Once again, I just want to thank all of the people that helped with the draft and the prep, and also just all of my opponents who played me this season, and we had some good times, some good sets, and yeah, this is actually my first Wi-Fi Kart League win, so I was like really happy about it. Like I worked really hard for this, and yeah, once again, thank you guys. Thanks again for Matrix for organizing and hosting the WDC, and I'll see you next time. Peace.